في نسخته الثانية في مديح الفنان الحرفي، نظرة تقييمية جديدة على الممارسة المعاصرة لفنون الحرف الإسلامية. والآن مع الجلسة السادسة بعنوان أثر الرعاية، دعوة للحراك، تقدمها وتدير الحوار الدكتورة سكينة الموسى، عميدة كلية التصميم بكليات الأصالة. رحبوا معي بالدكتورة سكينة.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am excited to be moderating this session this afternoon. Among the great topics today, our session comes to discuss an important subject to many of us, under the title, The Power of Patronage, a Call to Action. What makes this session even more special is the guests who will unfold this topic on stage. With all of their great experiences and passion they have for this field. Coming from a long inspiring experience in reviving traditional Islamic art and crafts is the first presentation by Abdulkarim Kreitz, CEO of Sarai Design, India. Abdulkarim is a trustee on the board of the Turquoise Mountain Institute in Kabul, senior advisor to the joint Saudi Handicraft and Turquoise Mountain project dedicated to the revival of Saudi arts and crafts. He is an American art historian who has researched and worked in India and across the Islamic world for more than 50 years. His primary focus has been on the revival of the traditional South Asian and Islamic arts and crafts. Over the years, he has coordinated a number of prestigious art and architectural projects ranging from Mexico to Malaysia, including the Federal Territory Mosque Kuala Lumpur, the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque Abu Dhabi, the movable mimbar for Al-Masjid Al-Haram in Mecca. These projects have given work to more than 8,000 master artists, carvers, inlay artisans, and calligraphers. His presentation today is titled The Power of Patronage, Reviving Islamic Arts and Crafts. The second presentation is by another inspiring experience coming from Dr. Talia Kennedy, Artistic Director at Turquoise Mountain. She is Creative Director of the conservation body at Turquoise Mountain. After starting her career in the London art world, Talia completed her PhD in Islamic art and architectural history in 2016. She joined Turquoise Mountain in Afghanistan as a founding director for the Charities Institute for Afghans Arts and Architecture. Leaving Kabul in 2011, she undertook visiting scholarship at the Getty Conservation Institute and Doris Duke Foundation for Islamic Art, before being appointed Deputy Director at the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha. She rejoined Turquoise Museum in 2015 as a country director for the program in Saudi Arabia and became International Creative Director in 2017. She is also currently the advisor of the Royal Institute for the Traditional Arts in Riyadh. Her presentation today is titled Museums, Patronage and Craftsmanship, Connecting Artisans Past and Present. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome on stage the first speaker, Abdulkarim Kreitz.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for those kind words. You know, it's truly an honor to be here today. I want to begin by saying how impressed I am by the extraordinary and magnificent exhibitions of master craftsmanship from Morocco to Malaysia, on display in the Israel Museum. These remarkable works of art and design are a vivid testament to the fact that arts and crafts at the highest classical level are still alive and well across the Islamic world. I'm also deeply moved by the papers and discussions that have taken place over the last 2 days. These discussions demonstrate a keen awareness that these precious art and craft traditions are not to be taken for granted. Great masters are living repositories of centuries-old knowledge and techniques which must be protected, nourished, and revived. This session of the conference is aptly titled A Call for Action. We must remain vigilant because many of these traditions are in danger of being lost. We all need to work together to ensure that the ancient connections we still have to the very roots of Islamic arts and crafts are maintained for future generations. Being here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is also for me a vivid reminder of how deep these roots truly are. They stretch back millennia to pre-Islamic time, to the Ahli Kitab, the people of the book, and to the vibrant trade routes of the Nabatean kingdom from Petra to Alula and beyond. This groundbreaking conference and exhibition shows how the beauty of art connects and enriches us all across the world. I want to talk to you briefly today about a subject that's very dear to my heart. I also strongly believe that this topic is also critical to the preservation of this planet's most important artistic and cultural treasures. From the last half century, my artisans and artists, we have been working together toward the revival of traditional Islamic arts, crafts, and calligraphy at the ustad, or master level, especially as it relates to the design and decoration of mosques and grand architecture. We are based in India, and our work has focused mainly on Mughal arts and crafts, and I decided from the outset that the most endangered of the Islamic art and craft techniques were also the most highly developed, intricate, and beautiful. Traditions such as carving, inlay, and miniature painting, which require years of training and incorporate rare and precious materials and techniques. I began in the early 70s with no plan, no strategy, but slowly over the years, some method to my madness has come together, which I want to share with you. I hope some of it can be useful in other parts of the Islamic world. My topic today is the power of patronage. But in order to effectively utilize and integrate patronage into projects and the commissioning of works of art, you first need to find ustad masters who will train and guide the artists and artisans working under their direction. Fortunately, they still exist in surprisingly large numbers across the Islamic world. I estimate in India that there are approximately 50,000 great masters still practicing a wide range of arts and crafts. The first master is always the hardest one to find, but after you have found him or her, the others seem to fall into place. Often they are from the same family, who have followed different art or craft techniques, or they are connected through work and projects. They are also, in most cases, ready and willing to share their knowledge and contacts. You may find that the level or quality of the craftsmanship might have gone down due to political and economic turmoil or lack of knowledgeable and sophisticated patronage. However, the basic skill level will still be there. It simply needs nourishment and encouragement. You always need to find and show them the best examples of their art and craft. Take them to the great and legendary buildings, like the Taj Mahal, and show them images in museums or books of the finest miniatures or calligraphy ever produced. I remember some years ago sitting for days with our master carvers, touching and feeling the white marble jolly screens at the Taj Mahal. Some of the most beautiful work ever carved. I explained to them that we have a project that needs this quality. Their first reaction was that it's not possible, we can't do it. I didn't argue, but simply gave them marble, photos, drawings, the jolly screens, and told them to go home and work. And try. After a month, I returned to the workshop and saw they had mastered the carving perfectly, 17th century carving, and they haven't looked back since. Sometimes it's simply a matter of confidence. It is always important to remember that it is up to us leading these revival efforts to show such examples and to praise the work that they do. And from this morning's discussions, give them credit. Let them sign their names, put the date. You know, they have an identity. Let it be known. Crucial to any successful revival is also the sourcing of the best materials and tools for the work. Pure white marble, lapis lazuli, hand-beaten gold leaf, stone ground pigments, specialized chisels and handmade emery grinding boards, and even squirrel hair brushes. But most important of all is to find work for your artists and artisans. Never, ever raise their level of expectation unless you are sure you can find projects and commissions for them. It's quite basic, actually. Their livelihood is in your hands. And together, you can bring the quality back to the highest quality ever achieved. All is possible, but it takes time. It took my carvers and inlay artisans 20 years to reach a level of quality and confidence where they could take on complicated design projects on a grand scale. Upon the completion of a particularly demanding project, one of my master stone carvers asked me if our work was good as at the time of Shah Jahan. I replied that out of respect for His Imperial Majesty, we should not say that we had reached that level of craftsmanship. But quietly, between ourselves, we have. Now, a few words about the power of patronage. Strong and inspired patronage is the key to the revival of master craftsmanship. In the past, dynastic patronage was paramount. Royal families would commission state projects as well as for their own use. The nobility, businessmen, and private individuals played roles as major patrons of art and culture. The interaction between the patron or client and the artisan is crucial and can make a great deal of difference in the quality and the impact that the work of art or project has. It can at times even change the direction of the evolution of architecture, calligraphy, and design. I'm going to now show you some images of different types and levels of patronage and the impact that they can have. I hope that this will inspire you for the future. On the screen is Humayun's tomb, Mughal emperor, the second Mughal emperor's tomb in Delhi, constructed between 1562 and 71. It was commissioned by his son, Emperor Akbar, and also Humayun's wife, Haji Begum, also supervised the construction of the project and moved into a caravanserai next door. What was important about this building? Groundbreaking. The first monumental tomb set in a Persian charbagh garden setting, which led the way straight to the development and the evolution of the Taj Mahal. Next, we're going to see the tomb of Khwaja Salim Chishti, a Sufi saint at Fatehpur Sikri. This is the entrance to the Fatehpur Sikri religious section. It's called the Buland Darwaza, or the lofty gate, one of the highest and most monumental gates built anywhere in the Islamic world. This is the tomb, white marble tomb. It was built about around 1580, 1581. And you may have seen in the gallery downstairs the white marble jali wall that our artisans, our carvers made in India. One of the last great jali lattice screen carvers is here with us today. The commission itself has inspired them to develop more designs, more jali designs. Other clients are beginning to use these jalis in their homes. This project has had a big impact. This is the interior of the walkways around the central tomb. This is Muhammad Sadiq, Ustad Sadiq. Sadiq, stand up, stand up. Thank you, thank you. He's like certain animals, he's a highly endangered species. You know, he's the last one who can carve like that, and he is the greatest workshop in India. Also, the jali wall, the screen that you see downstairs, nothing like that has been made for the last 400 years. It's really an amazing achievement, and I'm very grateful to ISRA, Aramco, and everybody who took part in it. This is Ustad Sadiq tracing. What we did is we took him to the shrine. We sat on the floor. We touched the jali screens. He measured them. He drew them, and then he went back, and then we made the wall. We carried the stone was transported by camelback in Makrana, a city in central Rajasthan. Here is some of the work being done, the carving and the polishing, fine-tuning of the jalis. We had a team of about 50 people working on this project. Here, Ustad Sadiq is checking the work. This is a very interesting tomb. This is the tomb of Sheikh Pir. It was built in 1613 at the time of Emperor Jahangir. Now, this was commissioned by the Empress, his wife, Nur Jahan. And it was commissioned, Sheikh Pir was one of the chief advisors of the emperor, and he was also her personal physician. She commissioned this remarkable building in red sandstone, and the interior is completely decorated with geometric and floral design. And the same designs were used about a decade and a half later for the decoration of the Taj Mahal. So her interaction with the workshops made a huge difference in the evolution of Mughal design. This is a wonderful jali screen with tiny detail of banding of jalis also around it. Taj Mahal, of course, we all know, commissioned by Shah Jahan for his beloved Empress, Mumtaz Mahal. This is another example of imperial patronage, which is very important. This was built between 1632 and 43. This is the detail of the flooring. Original design. Many original designs appear in these buildings, which are then used and inspired other decoration across North India. This is the interior. This is interesting, this mosque. This is the mosque. There is a mosque attached to the Taj Mahal, and on the side, inside these jali screens is where the Emperor Shah Jahan prayed. He was slightly separated from the congregation, and these jalis are very rare and very beautiful designs. This is the Jama Masjid, the great mosque of Agra, where the Taj Mahal is located. It was built by Shah Jahan's daughter. Now, this is the imperial Mughal princess. You know, she was very powerful, immensely rich, and she commissioned and paid for this mosque, which had some very unusual features to it. This is inside, and you can see each prayer area is demarcated by inlay. But even today, people come and they take their hand and they put their handprint on the wall. And they just want to remember the princess and also ask for a blessing. This is a special detail that you only see. She took a lot of interest in this building, and she developed new designs that you had never seen before. Very important, groundbreaking building. This is an interesting, we jumped to the 20th century, about 1937. The lady standing on the left is Doris Duke, and she was the richest woman in the world at that time, in the 30s. And she came to India, and she went to visit Mahatma Gandhi, who was very busy with the freedom struggle. And he told her, why don't you give work to craftsmen? Why don't you commission work? So she commissioned this building with white marble jalis. It's in Honolulu, Hawaii. And the interior, the interior bathroom is inlaid with semi-precious stone and also has beautiful jali designs. It's a testimony to the fact of how powerful and how creative the artistry was in the first half of the 20th century. This is a mosque that you're probably familiar with. This is Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. We were commissioned to inlay 1,170 columns with semi-precious stone in flowering design. This had a huge impact on the tradition. It's like a forest from the other side, from paradise. It's a very, very moving, and Sheikh Zayed wanted something remarkable, and I think we managed to produce it. This is interesting. It's called, in Hindi, it's called Jal Mahal. It's a water palace. It's on an island in Jaipur, and it was in very bad condition. It was built originally about 1728, and it had fallen into disuse, and there was a local businessman who decided he would pay for the restoration of it, and we designed the gardens. They were the finest gardens built since the last 150 years. And this is a wonderful water feature. The water falls in a waterfall, and behind the niches, you put candles. So you see the light of the waterfall through the candles. This project gave work to about 400 people. This is the main platform illuminated at night. This is one of the pavilions that existed, but the painting is new. Still, there are these wonderful artists who can do incredible wall paintings in homes and monuments. This is a hospital, a medical center in Delhi, and these are two 18-meter-high sandstone jali screens, and this is a detail, and then a close-up. The idea of the wife of the owner of the hotel, she said, I want people to come to these Tree of Life designs, and I want to take a red thread and tie it onto the screen to remember their sick ones in the hope that they will get better. It's a very creative use of traditional traditional design and craftsmanship, and very much appreciated by the people who come to the hospital. This is interesting how one patron can influence a design. It was commissioned by an industrialist named Suresh Neotia, who was also a very important art collector. He told me, he said, Abdul Karim, I want to commission a table that looks like it came from the fort of Shah Jahan in Delhi. I want no one to think that it was made today. Took us 2 years to design it, 2 years to make it. This is the carved base. And we studied manuscript designs, the illumination on manuscript designs for a long time. And I work with a wonderful artist in Jaipur, in Delhi, he's the greatest ornamentalist I've ever worked with, Ranjan Sengupta. And it's inlaid with a variety of precious stone. Here are some of the details. There's ruby, emerald, agate, lapis, malachite, mother of pearl, and on and on. So here, the interaction of the patron and the artist was crucial and made a huge difference. Again, many of you will be familiar with this. This is the movable marble minbar from the Masjid al-Haram in Makkah Sharif. We were commissioned to do that about the year 2000. It's a remarkable, innovative idea because it has wheels, it moves, it's air conditioned. The imam has a speaker where he can read the sermon. You know, it's really a remarkable achievement. We are also, for the last 14 years, we have been involved with the making of the calligraphy, the Quranic calligraphy panels for the extension of the Masjid al-Haram. The panels, if you put all of the panels together, they measure 2.5 kilometers in length. It's the largest calligraphy project ever done. The panels are inlaid, it's pure white marble, inlaid with lapis lazuli, and the inlay stands proud. It stands proud of the marble, and it's then gold leaf, pure gold leaf, beaten by hand by traditional craftsmen in Jaipur, is applied to the sides of the marble. This project has given work to more than 1,000 people, and it's still going on. We hope to finish next year, about 1 more year. And here are some of the calligraphic panels installed in the Masjid al-Haram. And I go back one time. A nice story is that one of my inlay artisans went on Hajj, and he was inside the mosque, and he called me, and he said, Sahab, I'm in the mosque, and I'm praying. I said, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. He said, no, you don't understand. I'm praying under my panel, the one I made. He had searched the entire mosque to find the panel he made, and he prayed. And he's the same one. Of course, the project is from the government and the king. But he was the one who asked me, he said, behind one letter, if I make one alif, can I put my name? I said, it goes inside the marble. No one will ever see. He said, I will know that my name will always be there. So we put his name there, and he paid for that one alif. He said, I want to pay from my pocket. This is one of our workers at prayer time. I hope that these examples of creative patronage show how important powerful the relationship between the patron-client and the artisan can be. Let us remember once again the subheading of this session. This is the call for action. We don't have much time. We're going to lose these artisans. They're going, if we don't give them work, they won't train their children, they won't train the other people. The tradition will die, and you lose a connection to the very beginning, the very roots of Islam. Now, I would like to address my final remarks to the members of the audience who are from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I want to personally thank you for the support your country has given to our artists and artisans over the years. These projects have affected and touched the lives of more than 2,000 people and their families. With regular income and work, they're able to educate their children, they're able to build schools, open clinics, and they will then encourage others to keep the skills of their ancestors alive and well. Thank you all for your support. It means a lot. Thank you.
شكرا دكتور عبد الكريم كرايتس. ضيفتنا القادمة هي الدكتورة تاليا كندي، حيث تأخذنا في رحلة بعنوان المتاحف والرعاية والحرف اليدوية، ربط الحرفيين في الماضي والحاضر. رحبوا معي بالدكتورة تاليا.
Gosh, what a gathering this is in praise of the artisan. Thank you so much to ITHRA, to the Alfazan Award, to all the organisers, to Idris. This is an extraordinary coming together of artisans, of collaborators, of patrons, of supporters. And it's quite an emotional moment for those of us who have worked alongside master artisans, as Abdul Karim has just so wonderfully illustrated how important and impactful this can be. So my talk today is really at the suggestion of Idris, who very kindly thought that this would be a nice moment to reflect on the projects that Turquoise Mountain and the artisans who we collaborate with have worked on with museum partners during the course of our existence. Some of you may have heard yesterday from Shoshana Stewart about Turquoise Mountain as an organisation. We support artisans where heritage is at risk of being lost and often where they and their communities are under threat. And we do that in whatever way is necessary to enable artisan communities and master artisans to continue their practice and to continue bringing livelihoods into their families through that practice. As Abdul Karim has so eloquently summarized, how important that economic backbone is to everything that we are all discussing and sharing in the last 3 days. Through our work at Turquoise Mountain, we have really learned that artisanship and the support of exceptional master artisans is so much about community and about connectors. It's about a whole ecosystem and a network that often is global. And we have learned through our projects the different ways in which museums and cultural institutions, they themselves as custodians of culture, heritage, and collections, are so important within that community as patrons, as supporters, collectors, and collaborators. And this could really be no more evident than today in this room and in the exhibitions and displays here at ITHRA. So, to start, I'd like to introduce you to the artisans that we've collaborated with from the Turquoise Mountain community, who have brought together some of the displays, both in the plaza and also as part of the exceptional exhibition that Idris and the ITHRA team have so beautifully brought together. Thank you also to the tech team who've been wrestling with my PowerPoint presentation, so I hope that this will work.
أنا اسمي عبد الرحمن طبنج من دمشق. بشتغل بحرفة الموزاييك من 35 سنة.
أنا ماهر سعيد درويش من دمشق، بشتغل بحرفة النجارة من 38 سنة.
أنا معتز حموش من سوريا دمشق، بشتغل بمهنة الصدف، تنزيل الصدف على الخشب وتنزيل القصدير.
أنا محمد درزي أبو الروس من سوريا حمص، أعمل مجال النحت، ترميم الآثار والمحافظة على البناء والرسم الهندسي المعقد.
اسمي مهنا خليفة من سوريا من محافظة حمص، بشتغل نحات.
أنا اسمي صقر فرحان عقلة، نحات حجر يدوي، سوري من محافظة حمص.
أنا عبد الله النجار من سوريا من حمص. نحن بنشتغل بالأرابيسك والتراث الشامي، مصلحة قديمة كثير، حبينا نحييها.
أحمد نعسان من مدينة دمشق، بعمل بمهنة الأرابيسك الدمشقي.
أنا عبد الرحمن أبو هبرة من سوريا، مدينة دمشق، غوطة دمشق، منطقة تدعى مدينة الثقافة، تشتهر بالموبيليا والمفروشات. حرفتي بالرسم والتصميم والرسم والحفر على النقش على الخشب.
عنان أسلام مدير الإداري للمصنع من نابلس، بشتغل في صناعة البلاط الملون التقليدي 20 ب20.
محمد فرج عبد الله توام، عمري 56 سنة، من سكان القرية اللي هي جبع قضاء القدس.
And thank you so much to the team at ITHRA for making it possible for a number of the artisans to be here as part of the conference, and congratulations to them on their sensational displays. Our journey with ITHRA began in 2021 as part of a series of mosque objects that were commissioned for the Art of the Mosque conference and exhibition. And our work with ITHRA, starting with the commission of these various pieces, has really emphasized how museums enable connection. And I apologize for the quality of this slide taken on my iPhone, but I thought it illustrated that point so beautifully. This is the incredible minbar that was made by a number of the artisans that you've just met. That was on display here 3 years ago. And as I watched this father and son encounter the minbar, they got closer and closer and eventually summoned up the courage to hold the dad's phone right up to see the artistry at really close quarters. And this is really so much about what museums are able to do to bring craftsmanship and extraordinary pieces such as this minbar to wider audiences. And we have found over our experience of collaborating with master artisans that this has profound meaning both for artisan communities and for museum visitors. I'm going to show a few of the museum collaborations that we have facilitated over the last decade. Shoshana, in her talk yesterday, showed you some slides from this exhibition that was held at the Smithsonian in Washington, Artists Transforming Afghanistan. This was really an exhibition rooted in the idea of empathy and in building connections between people and showing Afghanistan through a different lens, through cultural heritage and perspectives of master artisans, all living and working in Kabul at the time. And the exhibition really emphasized in the responses from visitors that importance of community. Within the exhibition programming, there was a virtual portal through which people in Washington could meet directly with master artisans in Afghanistan and see their workshops in Kabul. And it was also important in terms of creating a sense of place. Our first project was in the old city of Kabul in the historic district Murad Khani. And to develop the exhibition, master artisans from Kabul worked with the exhibition team to develop the exhibition build itself, to curate and to create elements of the architectural setting of Murad Khani that really helped to give visitors a sense of the arcaded structures and carved cedar that has formed the historic district's buildings over centuries. And that, in turn, then transported people and connected visitors to the communities of Murad Khani, and to enable a connection not just with the objects that were on display, but also with the people that had made those objects and the context in which they live, the restored buildings, many of them in Murad Khani, and at the heart of this, the Institute for Afghan Arts and Architecture. In this work, it also provided a commission for the artisans. In making these elements and the objects on display within the exhibition, this provided work and income for artisans over many months. And those objects, in turn, have now become kind of ambassadors for the craftsmanship of these master artisans. The Sayaban, which you can see here, and which Shoshana mentioned yesterday, has now found its way to Riyadh, but on its route has been in Washington, has been in Buckingham Palace, has been part of the London Design Festival. And it continues to create that sense of connection with wider audiences. The importance of objects and engagement through objects was perhaps best illustrated with a collaboration that took place with the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha. This was brought together by the museum team led by Aisha Al-Khata and curator Leslie Mickelson. And the concept was to bring artisans, to invite them to experience the museum's collection. They have objects from the long history of Afghanistan's artistic legacy, and to provide access to its collections for the master artisans. And so a group traveled to Doha, visited the museum, spent time with the collections teams, handling the historic objects, and using then their direct contact with these historic pieces to then create a series of new museum quality pieces inspired by what they had experienced and encountered. Nasser Mansouri, a fine wood carver who was one of the artisans that traveled to Mia, commented on how rich his discovery of the work of past artisans was for his own creative journey. Exposure to the work of those masters who had gone before, and which Abdul Karim also talked about in his presentation, really informed his own work as a master working today and proved a great source of inspiration. And also, he said that in some instances it provided some solutions for technical challenges that he'd been looking for answers for. In turn, the insights of master artisans also provided new perspectives for the curators and the collections team, a change in the way of looking at objects from a historic perspective to presenting objects then for visitors in the main galleries with that additional insight from the master artisans. And then through this collaboration, the museum then provided an opportunity for exhibition. And this close encounter between the historic objects in the collections, then informed a series of paired objects that became the exhibition Feroz Code, Tradition and Continuity in Afghan Art. So on the screen here, you can see a 15th century Timurid bowl with the familiar Chinese cloud collar design, and then hanging above, the piece that it inspired, which was made by a collaboration between, in fact, an illumination artist, Tamim Sahebzadeh, and then a silversmith, Moasha Qudsi. And what was so inspirational for the artisans was that actually they were, through the direction of the museum, they were encouraged not just to think about replicating within their own media, but also thinking about how that could relate to different media from the historic pieces. You can also see a Ishkar glaze jug that was made in response to a tinned copper 15th century jug from Iran. And the potter, Ustad Mateen, then translated the shape. Here you can see the historic piece, translated the shape and used the traditional Ishkar glaze from the village of Istalif, from where he comes. The exhibition presented the new and historic objects side by side, and through this interaction between the master artisans of past and present, showed the reinterpretation of these traditions and this heritage in the hands of today's master artisans. The exhibition also revealed a profound response from visitors to, and I think somebody in a question yesterday raised this, the universal nature of craftsmanship. Doha, as I'm sure you will know, has an exceptionally diverse audience base, people living in Doha from more than 100 countries around the world. And yet this message of craftsmanship to these diverse audiences of all ages really ignited their imagination, and the response was overwhelming to the illustration of practice, materials, and process. And the museum over then the course of the next 3 years continued to follow this as an idea and recognized in almost all its exhibitions that the message of craftsmanship, the story of master artisans, and the process of making has an incredibly high level of engagement and interest for museum audiences, at least in Doha. The longevity of the relationship with the museum has continued through a recent commission of master artisan and calligrapher Ali Baba Orang, who, through a journey of migration from Afghanistan to the United States, came through Doha and saw in the collection a page from the Blue Quran. And he was commissioned by the museum to create his own interpretation. And for him, it became a meditation on the scripts and the history of calligraphy in Afghanistan and his response then to that 10th century object. And the piece, which is a 6 meter wide, 2 meter high triptych, now hangs in the introductory gallery alongside the page from the Blue Quran, and again really emphasizes this powerful connection between museum collections and master artisans, and the level of inspiration that certainly the master artisans that we have collaborated with and work alongside draw from these historic pieces. Moving now to London, more recently we have facilitated a project with master artisans from Syria for new furniture at Leighton House Museum. As some of you may know, they've recently renovated a new wing at this historic house museum in central London. And the historic house itself has a history that is intertwined with the artistic traditions of the Levant, the historic building and its collections, showing deep connections with craftsmanship from Damascus in particular. So being able to commission and work with Syrian master artisan fulfilled something of a desire of the museum to create a new and different kind of visitor experience for its new reception areas, to align with the museum's own history of craftsmanship in the house and its collections, and to act as patron and provide commercial support for artisans through a major commission. Daniel Robbins, who's the senior curator at Leighton House, noted, "We wanted to do something that was connected to and referred to the historic house itself and to support artisan communities today, to commission something that would add value and enhance a sense of identity and of dialogue for our visitors." And so these pieces form first part of the visitor experience as you come into the main museum. They're also functional items. They're items at scale, so these are big pieces of furniture, and I think that's something that we have found often to be so important, to commission at scale. The work of Abdul Karim that we've just seen and the commissions downstairs, being able to demonstrate the architectural importance of these traditions and to give commissions at scale has been incredibly important and gives real livelihoods and commissions back to those master artisan communities. Importantly then, and I believe this is the case also with ITHRA and is the case with the Qatar Museum's commissions, that these pieces have then been accessioned into the collections of the museum. As we were hearing from Mariam earlier about the collecting work of the V&A, this is another incredibly powerful tool that museums and perhaps museums alone have to support artisans. This clear institutional recognition of the technical, artistic and cultural value of these objects really elevates the provenance of artisans' work and at the same time enhances the collections, the cultural meaning and relevance for museums in their mission. If I may quote Idris, he has said, "We see the Islamic arts and crafts as a living tradition that deserves our attention and support. Our aim is to present the Islamic crafts not as something from a dead and distant past, but as a practice that continues to have relevance and meaning for people today, particularly in the Muslim world." The positioning of today's craftsmanship, the work of master artisans, many of whom are in the audience today, within the museum context and as part of museum collections, elevates public perceptions of the importance, value, and quality of craftsmanship, often to counter ideas of mass production and the devaluing of craftsmanship in mass industry. And museums really have this such important and uniquely positioned voice as patrons within that wider ecosystem. This also helps with transmission. It helps encourage a young generation. The Syrian master artisan Moataz reflects there is a relationship of love between this craft and the people who practice it. If we want to pass this craft on to the next generation, the first thing we must do is encourage them to love it. There is also a clear economic value for commissions like the Leighton House Museum Commission, where the presence of artisans' work in this elevated museum context actively changes perceptions and encourages commissions from the private sector and commercial clients. To give a very tangible example, visitors to an event at Leighton House Museum included the CFO of the Maybourne Hotel Group in London. Reassured by the quality of what he saw and the context of where he saw it, he then signed off on this major commission for a new suite at the group's Connaught Hotel in London that has since brought together 100 artisans across 6 countries over a 12-month project, during which time they were fully employed. And this year has now opened to guests, and the story of that suite will now percolate to every guest who stays in the suite. So these are very tangible, meaningful connections that commissions create. Back to the work here with ITHRA, there is an important opportunity around innovation, bringing artisans to collaborate collectively and to experiment is not often an opportunity that is presented. Looking back to 2021, to the minbar made for Ithra, the master woodworker Maher Darwish, who was here yesterday, reflects on his work and says typically minbars are made using the craft of arabesque, fine carving. This piece is very special because it's made of wood mosaic. It is in the end a piece of art. I am proud to be working on such designs and such work and encourage artisans to work in these traditional crafts. I work on many pieces, but this is the first time I've had a chance to work on this kind of innovative piece. It was an experiment, but honestly, I feel that it was a successful one. Ithra too has afforded access to many artisans to a wider spiritual community. The inclusion of the minbar, together with other objects made by artisans from Jordan, Syria, Afghanistan, India, and beyond in Ithra's recent exhibition, Hijra, in the footsteps of the Prophet, has had profound meaning for the designers and makers that work together. Afghan designer Mariam Omar, who herself is also a maker and works closely with carpet weaving communities in Afghanistan, speaks of her experience. And this was at a time where there was a lot of turmoil in Afghanistan with the change of government. And at this time, she says, emotionally, I am inspired and humbled in knowing that my work is following a similar path to that of our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him. The Hijra serves as an example that although there may be periods of great turmoil and chaos, new beginnings can inspire humanity and create immense meaning and beauty. The example of the Prophet and the Hijra provide a positive model as I navigate the challenges that women and artisans currently face in Afghanistan. Mariam continues to work widely with the carpet weaving communities in Afghanistan, and much of her design work is really commercial in focus, helping clients, working with the graphers, working with the dyers, and with the weavers themselves to interpret client requests, the kind of whole ecosystem that Dr. Marcus was referring to earlier. However, in some instances, cultural institutions provide an opportunity for collaboration that goes beyond the world of commerce. And this was provided earlier this year as part of Design Doha, where Mariam and 24 women weavers from the community of Bamiyan in central Afghanistan came together to co-create a series of 24 new carpets for a single exhibit at this year's inaugural Design Doha. Most immediately, this provided work and income for the community of weavers. As Shoshana was saying yesterday, many of the weavers are now the only breadwinners in their family, and these kinds of commissions are incredibly important to sustain them and their families. But it also provided an opportunity to celebrate their heritage and to innovate within craftsmanship. The series of 24 carpets focused in design on the natural and cultural heritage of the weavers, and importantly focused on the women weavers' own poems about their weaving heritage. And you can see a line from one of those poems here. Stars, skies, mood asleep, fishes have calmed in the water to sleep. Carpet weaver's hands are awake while dreams are in her eyes asleep. There is a whole set of poems, some which relate to the practicalities of weaving, but others that relate to things, ideas around seasonality, the different materials that become available as the seasons change, the practice and ritual that goes along with different stages of the weaving process. The weavers also, with Mariam, wanted designs that drew deeply on a sense of place from the natural landscapes of Bamiyan and the relationship between the weavers and the natural world that in turn then shape the practice of carpet weaving and its materials. The best wool coming from the sheep in April, different kinds of plants that can be used for dyestuffs coming into bloom or being harvested at different points in the year. And that this collaboration also involves graphers, dyers, spinners, the people looking after sheep, and then after the weaving process itself, the finishing and the washing process. So the weavers and Mariam looked at colour. They drew inspiration from the frescoes that sit in the caves around Bamiyan, and together they designed a series of 24 carpets. Here are 2 of the carpets. As you can see, they are very contemporary and expressive in design. They show the extraordinary creative skill of both designers and weavers, and these are incredibly complex to interpret by eye from a graph. So they really show the skill of the weavers working both in silk and wool in one carpet in interpreting these designs. And while the carpets are contemporary in design, they do draw deeply on cultural traditions associated with weaving practice and a sense of interconnectedness between place, landscape, and artistic expression. The exhibition was also an opportunity to connect the weaving community to audiences and to counter a sense of often extreme isolation. The exhibition included imagery and soundscapes, and hopefully I will play now the voices of Mariam and Fauzia, 2 of the weavers who read the poems and form part of the exhibition experience.
خواهرا جمع شی برین قالین بافتن، مادها رنگ شده با میان آمدن، مادها رنگ شدن رنگهای روشن، قالین را کار کنی از تار افرنگ، قالین را کار کنی از شوق دل خو، مثال تحفه تقدیم است مریم. جهان بازار قالین تو باشد، رنگ گل تار قالین تو باشد.
So for the women weavers of Afghanistan, these weaving communities, this exhibition, Weaving Poems, really presented an opportunity for their work and voices to be experienced directly from visitors around the world. And what was evident from evaluations inside the exhibition was how much the visitors also responded to being able to hear the voices of the weavers. Obviously, they were unable to travel to the exhibition given the circumstances in Afghanistan, but nevertheless, one visitor commented, "I can really feel the presence of the weavers and can see how much work and love has gone into weaving these carpets." So I hope looking at these different examples has shown how museum collaborations, how museums as patrons can provide exceptional global access for artisans to commissions and also to stakeholders, to visitors and audiences on a global stage. Thanks to museum projects with partners like ITHRA, in the last decade, just through these few examples, more than 2 million visitors have seen the work of master artisans in person. Thanks to ITHRA and others, the associated readership reach has been more than 1 billion people. And within that, many millions of direct views on social media. The artisans or Turquoise Mountain as a facilitator would never be able to access these kinds of audiences, and these do have very meaningful, impactful benefits for artisan communities. It brings new commissions, it brings new work, and it elevates perceptions and understanding of the extraordinary skills and talents of master artisans working across the world today. And to complete the story here, it also enables an opportunity for cultural audiences to return. So the Weaving Poems exhibition will be coming back to Bamiyan next year, thanks to UNESCO and local partners. The exhibition will be shown here at the cultural centre that sits in the centre of Bamiyan, and we would like to invite all of you to come and see the exhibition. Bamiyan is the most beautiful place, and it would be an honour to introduce you to the weavers that created these fantastic carpets. To everyone at ITHRA, thank you so much again, and thank you for your time.
شكرا دكتورة تاليا. نبدأ الآن الجلسة الحوارية والأسئلة. أرجو من ضيوف الجلسة الكرام التوجه للمسرح. رحبوا معي بالدكتور عبد الكريم والدكتورة تاليا ومديرة الحوار الدكتورة سكينة الموسى.
Well, I have to start with saying thank you very much for such a fascinating showcase of this aspect of patronage. It has been a great couple of minutes and an amazing experience. I don't know, I would like to invite questions from the audience, if there is any question before we start. Or we can start and then, yeah, there is.
Hello. Thank you both for amazing presentations. The whole idea of creating life behind the crafts, as you so eloquently told us and very emotionally told us about, getting behind those Indian craftsmen, the masters, and supporting them in a very tangible way was very impressive to hear about. And I'm very, very interested in hearing more about how this, you mentioned it a bit at the end, the way that it works to create further the communities with the families and so forth. But I would like to delve a bit deeper into, do we have numbers? You had numbers on the number of possible artisans being in the country now. Do we have a foreseeable number of those artisans actually being able to sustain and keep on teaching their children and their children's children and keeping this alive?
Yes, well, it's really all about patronage. It's all about work. It's all about commissions. They need work. That's the important thing. What I've done for the last 50 years is, first you bring them the tradition up to a classical quality, but what you find is more and more artisans come. They'll bring their cousins, their uncles, their aunts, who are also artisans in different traditions, and it begins to take on a kind of life of its own. And it's an organic development, and it can happen, but without commissions, without work, without patronage, it's very, very difficult. What is really important, I think Natalia will agree also, is the recognition of their own existence. You know, it's very important. I wanted to tell a little story about people being recognized and able to sign their work and tell about I am alive, you know. So we had an artist who, I was buying his paintings, wonderful paintings of bears, big black bears. And I couldn't find him. So finally I found him in the market. And he said, you know, I can paint the bear in 17th century style, 18th century style, 19th century style, and 20th century style. Because I sell as old. People buy it, they think it's an antique. I said, forget that. I want you to sign your name and put the date. And he started to cry. He said, you mean you want to tell people that I'm alive? I said, yes, I want to tell people you're alive. And from then on, he's become a very prominent artist. And you have to do it, there's no plan. As like I said, there's no method. It's something, it just happens. But you have to be sensitive to them and to the human condition and the fact what they need and their family needs. You know, you have to go to the births, the deaths, the birthdays, all the celebrations. You have to be part of their lives. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah, and maybe as a follow-up, I wanted to probably seek extension of the idea of what you mentioned as a sophisticated patronage. And it is something that has been echoed in your presentation as well, when you mentioned the engagement with the stories behind the pieces that are produced and commissioned. So how much engagement we get with the audience and with the people who are providing this kind of patronage to this artwork. I think this is also an extension of the title of this conference, is the praising the artisans themselves rather than the artifacts that are produced as a static work of art. So what is the best relationship or image that we can get of a sophisticated patronage? What is the level of awareness that we need to get in order to find good patronage for these artisans?
Talia, you want to?
Well, first, this. I think that's where the museum voice is so important. We see so much the devaluing of craftsmanship, and in particular in the face of mass markets that I mentioned in my talk. And I think seeing the work of artisans honoured by museums as part of collections, and as we've talked about today, artisans as the maker and the inspired designer often, all really help to change these wider perceptions. And it's interesting, we've seen also in commercial markets in the last 15 years or so that there is a real shift towards appreciation for craftsmanship. The words heritage and artisan suddenly sort of appeared in advertisements all over the place for all kinds of things. We see it also in the hospitality sector, where the shift has been from, high quality sheets to a sense of place and a sense of connection with local culture and heritage, and that often artisans play a central role in that, as the Connaught Hotel actually has been a good example of, that the storytelling and the unique experience that often commercial sectors want to offer to guests or buyers actually now, thankfully, has kind of caught up with this idea that craftsmanship is still incredibly valuable, and the extraordinary acumen and knowledge of master artisans is alive and well.
True.
Yes, what I wanted to say is that every one of you can be a patron. All of you. You meet the artist, you meet the master. Don't say, I want a table 4 foot by 4 foot with flowers on it. You get down, talk to them. This is my favorite flower, I like this style. It's an interaction, collaborative process, and each of you benefit from that,
And how about, I was wondering, with all the stories and the images, the fascinating images that were in both presentations, how can we encourage, or do we actually see a role for media in this journey? Because media, let's say, as vehicles that carry these narratives through different mediums, whether they are in exhibitions or outside the exhibitions, in mainstream media, in social networks. Did you see through your experience a role or impact for media when they pay attention?
You're very precious. You're very important. You have to spread the story. You have to tell the story. They cannot tell their story. We can tell it to a certain point, but the people need to understand that. I mean, for example, there are 50,000 master artists in India. You know, you need to tell that story. You need to let people know that they can commission works and things. Media is very important, and I think that both of us we use it more and more to spread the word. You know, it's important, right? Crucial to the thing.
And yeah, I mean, so the development of social media has been a gift in many ways. It also facilitates the design and quality control processes. You can do a lot through WhatsApp, so where communities have become very isolated. We saw yesterday the examples in Myanmar where people are facing such horrendous challenges, but still the work can continue, and so the income can keep coming because you can do quality control on WhatsApp, you can share a design, you can have a conversation about an adjustment. So that has really been transformational. And then certainly Instagram, and you know, to be able to share visual materials so easily, and you know, for artisans to be able to connect directly with clients, I think that's been transformational.
Oh, absolutely.
That, you know, so often there was several middlemen, middlewomen, you know, there was a lot in between the maker and the final end user, and that actually there's so much now that can be done to create that direct contact, which ultimately is, you know, much better all around. Yeah.
Yes. No, my wife, for example, she'll say, push button 3, and Abdul Karim will start talking about his craftsmen. So you have to keep on telling the stories, and the stories are important because they're human, their lives, you know, their lives are impacted by what we do, and that's important. And otherwise we'll